To say that the UCLA Center for World Health is a corporate member of LA5 Rotary, and so we're very proud to have this affiliation. One of the articles in the LA Times this morning talked about drought and water shortage. And I know when we think about the health of the planet, we often think about water, we often think about climate change. But what the Rockefeller-Lancet Commission has done is put this into a much larger framework. The health of the planet is multivariable, multi-complicated, and solutions will not be easy to find, but they must be found. I'm pleased to introduce the first speaker, Matt Petersen. Matt holds the position of the Chief Sustainability Officer in the City of Los Angeles. He's one of the nation's leading environmental champions and clean energy advocates. He was CEO of Global Green USA since 1994. He has a stellar reputation in this area. And so I'm pleased to present Matt Petersen, who will talk about what Los Angeles has done and is planning on doing to improve the health of the planet.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. It's great to be with you today. On behalf of America Garcetti, we welcome you all, including some of our esteemed guests from across the globe who joined us today for this very, very important study that will be discussed. This very important study that will be, that's better, will be discussed today. It was released yesterday, I believe, in New York and one other place in Johannesburg, and today here in Los Angeles, and we're really grateful that the partners at Lancet, UCLA, Rockefeller, and others decided to share these important findings with you. So why do, I think we have a PowerPoint. Is it working? Why do cities matter in this conversation? Cities matter because 70% of all greenhouse gas emissions emanate from activities in cities. And as we see really the impact of climate change and air pollution and resource consumption and depletion around the globe, a lot of those goods, a lot of those resources are going to cities to allow this amazing life that we do have here in Los Angeles to exist. We have done a lot here in LA historically to clean up the air. We still have the dirtiest air of any region in the country, but if you were here in the 70s, you would see the marked difference between now and today. Places like Beijing are looking to LA to learn how can they clean up their heavily polluted air. In terms of water and the drought, Tom talked about drought. LA uses the same amount of water today as it did 40 years ago, but we have 1 million more people here in LA. And we just announced yesterday that we, as Los Angeles, as Angelinos, we came together in response to the drought and cut our water use in less than a year by 13%. The mayor asked us to do it by 10%. We hit 13%, and we're on our way to 20% cut. So thank you all for what you've been doing to make that possible. So I'm just going to walk you through briefly what we're now doing going forward in the Sustainable City Plan, again, in context of this important study in global health. So I will do this briefly, but we've talked about some of the challenges, and the speakers will talk about them on a more global basis, but whether it's drought or a growing population, we know we need to act. LA's got a lot of great stories. We have a vibrant city with enormous amount of cultures and languages spoken that really makes this place an amazing city. And a lot of great stories of leadership at the community and the neighborhood level of making our city a better place. So we released in April a Sustainable City Plan that's really a roadmap for LA to lead into the future. And not just City of LA on its own. I mean, if you're from here, you know the geography. If you're not, it's confusing. It's a bit like a black hole, like where does LA end and where does West Hollywood begin? Where does Santa Monica end and where does LA begin? But we're working together as a region to really work together to create a sustainable city that not just squeezes in 500,000 more people, or potentially 1 million more people in 20 years, but welcomes them to a thriving city and region. So the plan provides a vision, it sets benchmarks, It provides milestones. It allows the mayor to meet, as he is right now at this very moment, meeting with and reviewing his general managers of the 35+ departments in the city and saying, how are you doing, not just on delivering services, but on the sustainable city plan. So we're holding our leadership accountable to deliver results. We're using the plan to set budget priorities, which is a big change, and we're also tracking and reporting that progress. And the plan goes into not just the environment. Sustainability is not just an environmental euphemism, a euphemism for the environment. It's about the environment, it's about economy, and it's about equity. These all need to work together to make a better city. And the Lancet study really does touch on that in terms of the need for resiliency, because who's impacted when we have a major crisis, whether it's an earthquake, which is truly a natural disaster, or a climate-related disaster, which is exacerbated by human-induced climate change. It's poor people. It's our most at-risk parts of society that suffer the most, that have the toughest time in being really resilient. So talking about resiliency is a critical piece of the economic section of the plan. How do we prepare and respond to? The study talks about urban heat island effect. It's something we need to work on with great import and urgency. Just this last week, we did a pilot of how do we take all the blacktop in all of our parking lots in the city and reduce the heat that's, if you've ever walked on a hot, blacktop on a hot day, it's like 140 degrees. So we put a cool surfaced, a gray basically coating on a parking lot at one of our parks that'll host a Special Olympics event, which is also coming to LA next week. And we reduced the heat differential by 10 degrees. That's significant. Now imagine if we did that with every parking lot, and then we get the technology so we can do that with every street. We can really begin to reduce that heat gain that we have in our cities. We'll just quickly go through this. So in our environmental section, we've got to focus on local water. LA is dependent on imported water. How do we reduce that amount of imported water? How do we increase the local supply? That's through conservation. That's through recycling of our sewage water, so it goes back into the ground and we treat it. And when it comes back and we clean it, make sure it's going to be clean. It's actually going to be cleaner even after it's treated than bottled water. Capture that stormwater, make sure we put it and capture it for use for the future, and other investments into our water infrastructure. Solar, we have an abundant amount of sun in LA. How can LA continue its leadership as the #1 solar city in America? We can do more to help customers at the Department of Water and Power put solar on their rooftops. We can do more to help large installations of solar come right here into our basin. We're working hard in the city with the department through the mayor's leadership to make it easier. We just eliminated the need for you to go down to a building permit, a Department of Building and Safety counter and get a permit. You can actually get your permit for solar online instantly for a solar system for your house. How do we make it easier for you to take these actions? We're also increasing the energy efficiency of our buildings, and we're going to make, LA's been a leader, and we'll continue that leadership. And on climate change, which is really kind of the key connection point, I think, here in this study, is we've made the commitment to reduce emissions by 80% by 2050. Today, the governor and the mayor of New York are on their way to the Vatican to meet with the Pope next week about equity and about climate change. And we have mayors who we've worked with on the Mayor's National Climate Action Agenda that are going to be part of that delegation, trying to create domestic political will for leadership to take action when we get into the Paris climate talks this December. That all turns into what? That means we've got a better future for our kids and their grandkids, our grandkids, so that we can make sure they enjoy the air, the water, the natural beauty we have, and that we provide the biodiversity that's so critical to be able to sustain life on Earth as we know it. These are critical investments we're making, and we've seen in California that as we've ratcheted up the controls on air pollution and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, our economy's actually grown. We have become a more robust, resilient, and dynamic economy, not because of just Silicon Valley and the tech industry, but because we have helped industry become more efficient and competitive globally while growing our economy locally. Touching on economy, one of the challenges in LA is where do you live? Why do you live close to where you work or where your kids go to school? We are focused on how do we deliver more housing units to increase affordability overall while increasing investment in low-income, restricted, affordable housing. It's a critical priority for the city of LA. We've seen an enormous amount of transit investment throughout the region. We're focused on transit-oriented development so you can live closer to where you work and where your kids go to school. We've created green jobs. We're focusing on 20,000 green jobs as our target. We're well on the way to get there by 2017, and that's through infrastructure investment in water, energy efficiency, solar, and mass transit investment, and it's a critical success story for LA. And then preparedness. This again gets into the study today of connecting the dots of how do we prepare for the future? How do we reduce our urban heat island effect here in Los Angeles? And somebody, editorial cartoonist for the LA Times, got a little confused when we released this plan in April and conflated reducing global mean average temperature by 2 degrees or more, or capping it at 2 degrees with the notion of reducing urban heat islands. They're two different things. Maybe a little confusing, but the science is clear. We can actually reduce urban heat island effect here, while collectively we need to work to reduce emissions to cap global mean temperatures to really make sure we can have a thriving society in the future. Equity, this all really, again, is important for our lowest income families to be able to thrive in our communities, so improving air quality, reducing hospital room visits for asthma attacks for our seniors and our kids is important. How do we really put investments in our neighborhoods where it's needed the most, and really make sure we have a vast, thriving urban ecosystem. So we're focused on investing in our parks, increasing access to our public green spaces, stuff that is really critical, as again in this report. And how do we make our neighborhoods more livable, safer, bringing those services closer to where you live so you don't get in your car. You can reduce that the number of times you have to get in the car to go to the store. You can walk to a coffee shop or get your groceries rather than feel like you've got to drive somewhere every time. And we're leading by example. So we're reducing our own energy use. You'll see some great stuff, including from LA Police Department in the coming months and what they're doing with their buildings and their fleets, their fleet vehicles. We're going to see a lot of exciting things we'll be rolling out in the next few months, showing how LA is leading by example, not just here in California, but around the world. And we've got a dashboard. You want to track our progress and hold us accountable, because we cannot succeed in implementing this plan just with the mayor's office and even the 55,000 men and women who work for the city. It needs to be owned by each of you, and you can all be part of implementing the plan through our strategies here today. And you can do that by adopting the plan into action. So we welcome you to go to plan.lamayor.org, make a commitment yourself. We've had organizations, we've had corporations, we've had school teachers make commitments to adopt the plan into action in your neighborhood. So we welcome you to do the same. And really just thank you again to Rockefeller and Lancet for being here today, and for the Rotarians and their great generosity and graciousness to host us here today. I hope you have a great rest of the panel. Thank you.